Hello, you will hear that my voice, it's gone. These events, there's lots of yelling, there's lots of shouting at people at bars, in a friendly way, of course. So apologies, but here we are. We're talking about Cyberpunk. I got the chance to play about an hour and a half of it, actually, and that's important because there were 2 demos on display or whatever at Summer Games Fest. The first one was at the actual floor of Playdays, where I think it was about a 30-minute session, and it got you up to a certain point in the story, and then it stopped, right? This was before you got to meet Idris Elba. So the demo that I got did show off a lot more of what Phantom Liberty is offering. Plus, I also got to interview some developers while I was there. I was actually sitting next to the lead environment artist for the whole game. We're just talking about stuff as we're going through. We also had some questions at the end. So I feel like I got a pretty good read on where things are at currently with Phantom Liberty, or at least as much as CD Projekt Red were willing to share. On that note, we'll talk about spoilers. So I'm not going to do any spoilers here. I will talk about the setup for this expansion, right? Because that's the footage that you're seeing here. It's very much out there. I'm sure CD Projekt Red are going to be putting that, front and center in their marketing in the next little while. So I will talk about the setup for the expansion, the opening little bit, but there's a lot more that I saw in my extended demo that I'm not going to talk about here, right? Because I think they are quite important story details that you should experience for yourself. Other outlets may cover them. I choose not to. So yeah, it's going to be quite spoiler-free. You should be it's spoiler-free. So in terms of what I played this on a PC running an RTX 4090 with the ray tracing overdrive, pathfinding update enabled. It's important to note that CD Projekt Red also offered me the chance to play on a PlayStation or an Xbox. They offered that multiple times. It was very clearly a play to show that they are not trying to hide the console realities of this expansion. So yes, there is PlayStation and Xbox playable code out there right now for previews. Plus, the B-roll that you're seeing here is a mix of PC, PlayStation, and Xbox, and that also allows us to do some brief visual comparisons. But yes, you are seeing the footage here for yourself for consoles, plus we had the option to play it. I chose PC because I wanted to see what the pathfinding was like on the expansion, what they were doing with it, but I know other previewers are playing the game on consoles as well. Last thing I'll say is setup is that this is not my footage. It is provided B-roll. We were not permitted to capture. That's very standard for these sorts of things, but just keep that in mind. So, high-level thoughts. What do I think about Phantom Liberty so far? I think it's good. I think it's impressive, but it's definitely a case of like once bitten, twice shy, okay? We all learned a lot about hype when it comes to Cyberpunk, okay? I certainly did. And so while I think this looks great, and I'm excited for it, I think it's important that we just keep our hype levels in check, and we just wait for the finished product to arrive, because we all remember Cyberpunk, right? But yeah, there are things about this that I really liked and really enjoyed. In particular, it looks absolutely extraordinary. Cyberpunk has always been one of the best looking games ever made, and this continues in that tradition. The new area looks absolutely stunning, and the fact that the ray tracing update is there, path tracing, it's just some of the most incredible lighting I've ever seen in a video game, perhaps the most incredible. It really is just unbelievable how good this game looks at times. And true story, while I was playing, the CD Projekt Red guy kept telling me, he's like, dude, hurry the fuck up, because I was just standing there looking around the whole time, right? He didn't use that language, but he was politely encouraging me to move on, right? So I think it looks fantastic. I think the overall setup for it being a spy thriller is a really cool premise, and I think it may result in some really interesting RPG-style decisions if CD Projekt Red want to do that. Idris Elba is really nailing it. When I met him, again, I won't spoil the setup for him, but when he is there, man, he's just so present and just such a powerful force in every scene. It was awesome. Plus, there's actually a lot more Keanu in this than I thought. I really thought he would just have like 1 or 2 lines, but Keanu feels as present in this expansion as he does in the rest of the game, which I thought was also very cool. The thing I'm most excited about, though, is not actually Phantom Liberty, because as I was talking to CD Projekt Red, I learned that there were all these improvements coming to the base game, and they didn't want to talk about those. And it was weird, because I was like, so for example, they're like, oh, we redid the AI system for enemy combat. And because while I was playing, I was like, these enemies seem smarter, like what's going on here? And they're like, oh yeah, we improved the AI. I'm like, okay, why didn't you mention that, They're reworking the perk system, and the perk system in the base game was pretty rubbish, right? And they're like, oh yeah, we're reworking it. And it's like, what? Okay, that's kind of a big deal, right? So there are a lot more that they weren't willing to talk about yet. And I asked them, I'm like, why don't you guys want to talk about this? And they're like, we're just putting the focus on the expansion for now. We're going to talk about that stuff closer to release. I'm like, okay, fair enough, I guess. But I mean, personally, that's the stuff that really, really interested me, because Cyberpunk, much as I loved it, it still obviously had a lot of potential. There were still a lot of problems with it for sure. And I think that some of the updates that they teased and spoke about kind of speak to some of those limitations. Like they're redoing the cop system, right? A whole new 5-star system. Max Tech comes and gets you when you're at 5 stars. They said that's all new for this expansion that's coming to the entire game, not just to Phantom Liberty. And it's like, okay, that's a really big deal, right? So really big improvements coming to the base game, which I think is cool. But yeah, CD Projekt Red don't want to talk about that yet. So I guess we'll park that for now at least. So back to Phantom Liberty. The footage that you're seeing here is the very start of this campaign. And to be clear, you can do this at sort of after a certain point within the main Cyberpunk campaign, you will get a phone call and that will kick off this quest line, right? So there is a new part of the map that has been added called Dogtown. It's completely closed off to you at all points, unless you like kind of out of bounds through it, of course. But you will not be able to get in there by regular means until you get this phone call, and then you start this quest line. When you do that, that begins what you are seeing here, which is you arrive at this new location. The demo actually started in a kind of black market, which there was no footage of that here, but you know, that's where it starts. And then you make your way through this ruined stadium area, and then you see this plane crash scene come down, and I mean, just take a look at it.
V, the president! You have to... Songbird! God damn it! Shit, shit, shit! Fuck me! Save the president. Sure. No fucking problem.
So that plane is actually Air Force One, sort of. There is a new president of the new United States, and she gets shot down over Night City, and that kicks off the events. And that's what this little block here is that you're seeing, right? You start in this stadium, the plane gets shot down, you have to make your way through Dogtown, you're sort of racing through it while the area is responding to this crash. You get to the crash site, and then you need to try and get close to it. And you can either go in all guns blazing, or you can sneak around. I tried unsuccessfully to go full frontal, but it had been a while since I played, so I sucked. I died a couple of times, and then my man was like, listen, let's just stealth. I'm like, all right, fine, let's stealth. And so we did the stealthy path, and that worked beautifully. We made our way to the crash site. There was some combat involved because there were some enemy forces trying to, you know, storm the crash site, grab the president, whatever else. She had her own forces fighting back. I was able to sneak in behind them. A few sneaky headshots, and then I was there, I met the president, and that was the end of that demo, right? So that's where the normal short form demo ends, but then I was able to go forward beyond that and see a whole bunch more of the game. So as for this opening section, it's really cool. It's a big spectacle. It's cool to see a plane crash into Night City, right? That's exciting. The set piece was exciting. Racing through the city and, you know, seeing this new Dogtown area looked fantastic. The action was really cool, obviously. We'll talk more about that soon. But yeah, I mean, it was just a nice opening section that kind of just gets you in. Definitely one of the more sort of spectacle-driven moments throughout the entirety of Cyberpunk, really, even if you compare it to the base game. While you're doing this, you're seeing for yourself just how incredible Cyberpunk continues to look. We can show you some side-by-side comparisons here, PC, PS5, and Xbox. And while you can see that the PC version looks better, absolutely, the PS5 and Xbox versions still look absolutely fantastic. Cyberpunk has always been, no matter all the complaints people might have about it, Cyberpunk's always been one of the best looking games ever made, and this just follows in that tradition. But I will say that I don't think this footage fully does it justice, because after this demo ends, that's when I got the chance to step into Dogtown and see what this new location was like for myself. So Dogtown is actually set in Pacifica. Anyone that's played the original Cyberpunk will know Pacifica is a kind of half-finished, you know, paradise, right? They were trying to build casinos there, and it was meant to be this luxurious location that they kind of just stopped building halfway through. And so it has these really developed, incredible locations that are clearly half finished, and sort of nature is reclaiming them. The developers describe Dogtown as Pacifica on steroids, and you can really see that. There are a lot of different types of locations within this one space, and different architectural styles. There's your corpo style buildings, there's slums, there's construction sites, there's outdoor areas, there's, you know, buildings with covered in foliage, there's all sorts of stuff. And like I said, I really was just kind of looking around the whole time, just taking it in, because it does seem like it looks better. Maybe I'm just misremembering Cyberpunk, and you know, it's been a while. Maybe it looks the same as it did before. But I just went back and played some Cyberpunk recently as part of that Overdrive ray tracing update. And I swear this just looks better. And the environment artists themselves said, yeah, we tried to take it to the next level. We tried to make this game look even better. I think they did that, but obviously only saw a small slice of Dogtown. But even then, what I saw was really amazing. Narratively, Phantom Liberty is positioning itself as a political thriller, or a spy thriller as they're calling it, right? So there is this new president. She has been shot down over Night City, and the plot is very much centered, at least at the beginning, on who shot down the president. There's this kind of mercenary warlord guy who's appointed himself, you know, chieftain of Dogtown, right? And it stands to reason that he's probably the guy that shot her down. Okay, sure, maybe. But there are other people that want the president dead as well. And so the setup for all of this and the dialogue that I experienced as I went through from that, you know, after the plane crash was very much about figuring out who might this be and what's the process for going forward from here. Because she can't just go outside and say, hey, what's up, everyone? I'm okay. She's very scared. She understands that she needs to sort of play from the shadows. And that's why you're kind of working with different people, working with different factions, with spies, with all that sort of stuff. And I think that creates a really great narrative framework for what, you know, CD Projekt Red could do with this from a decision-making perspective. Already, I was making decisions, even in this opening chapter, about how I wanted to play this. I was actually asked to swear allegiance to the new United States at the beginning. I could choose to do that, I could choose not to, and that had some pretty manifest impacts, which I won't spoil, on how the story would progress. So yeah, I think that's a really great framework, and I think it's quite a different story than the rest of Cyberpunk, so I'm really keen to see where that goes. Idris Elba, as part of it, is, man, like, again, won't spoil his role so far, but he's a really big deal. The way you meet him is awesome. The amount of just presence he brings to scenes is fantastic. His model looks so good. I mean, because obviously Johnny Silverhand is there, but he's kind of digitized, whereas, you know, Idris Elba is like a real person standing there in front of you. Just so imposing. Just such a great addition to this, and his lines are so fantastic. Like, this guy has not phoned it in at all. He's just crushing every scene. It really is just a fantastic addition, and so glad that he's involved, and really keen to see exactly where his character goes. But again, like I said earlier, there's a lot of Johnny Silverhand in this. He would not shut up. Just like the rest of the game, he was just at me all the time. And that was a surprise to me, because I thought that when they said, you know, Keanu Reeves is coming back, I'm like, they probably paid him a tenner and he's doing like 2 or 3 lines, and the NPCs will, you know, other NPCs will pick up the slack or whatever. But no, man, he is there. Because obviously this happens as part of the overall Cyberpunk storyline. So it's not like he's taken a back seat while all this is going down. He is very much there. He has a lot to say about what's going on, and I think that is awesome. That was a really positive surprise. His presence is only felt after the plane crash incident, right? Because he starts giving his commentary on what you might do and who you should trust and all that sort of shit. So yeah, very, very pleasant surprise. There were a number of different combat encounters that I had throughout this. So combat itself is largely unchanged, in the sense that you've still got the same abilities, you've still got the same weaponry. I'm sure they'll add some new weapons as well, but whatever. But, you know, you're still fighting the same sorts of enemies. It overall feels pretty much the same as it did before. But the one thing I noticed was that the AI were definitely smarter, right? I was one circumstance where I was kind of fighting a whole bunch of enemies in an intersection, and stuff was going down, and the enemies were being smart. Like, they were staying behind cover and weren't presenting themselves as super easy targets, and I needed to move up to get them rather than them just rushing me. And again, Cyberpunk had plenty of problems with its AI. They were pretty stupid. So I haven't obviously stress tested this. We don't exactly know how much better the AI is, but it was noticeably better as I played it before the developers even said anything to me. They brought that up after I finished the demo, and they said, oh yeah, we improved the AI. I'm like, okay, yeah, well, sure, I noticed that. So that was a really nice change. And I guess that sort of speaks to what I said at the start, which is that one of the most exciting aspects of this is that there are changes coming to the base game that are going to affect the whole thing. The perk system in the original game was, yeah, kind of a mess. They weren't specific with me about the scale of the reworking of the perk system. They didn't say it was major or minor. They just said they were reworking it, okay? But That's good, because it obviously needs a bit of a rework, and that's great. Car combat is another thing, right? There are certain cars that have like rockets on top of them now, which you will be able to fire. And, you know, like you can fire out of car windows and whatever. That thing that I mentioned about the police system, that's been totally reworked as well. So those are just 3 elements, and they said to me that there are a lot of other things coming as well, but they didn't want to talk about them. They were clear that they want to focus on the expansion for now, and that later on down the track, we will hear more about improvements to the base game. And I'm sure that's one question that a lot of people have, because this happens during the campaign. The Phantom Liberty expansion happens during the campaign. And the question is, should you have a character ready to go? And, you know, to play this? Should you start playing Cyberpunk now so that when the expansion launches, you've got a character ready to go, etc.? The answer to that is no. Like, almost absolutely not. Because, yeah, it sounds like there are so many changes coming to the base game, and they seem quite important, that it would be worth just waiting for those changes to roll through, and then starting a new character, and then going further. That's actually kind of how these changes feel like from the ground up, and then I will play through this expansion as well. That's a really exciting prospect. Or the base game has already had numerous improvements. It's not going to transfer much your choices matter, how deep the RPG is, etc. None of that is going to change, I suspect. But they're going to be an action game more than it is an RPG. And like that, I feel like Phantom Liberty feels like more of that, right? I don't feel as though this is going to transform it into a much deeper RPG. I think it's telling a new, you know, spy thriller inspired action story. That's certainly the tone that opening set piece moment, you know, sets up. And that's what I think this expansion is going to be. So, as someone that really likes Cyberpunk, I'm keen for more Cyberpunk, do you know what I mean? Knowing that the base game is going to get better is cool. The stuff that I saw, Dogtown, it just looks like a really incredible location that somehow looks better than the base game did. And the base game still looks extraordinary to this day. Idris Elba's presence in it, I think, is fantastic. I love the spy thriller setup. I think it's great. The fact that Keanu is very present throughout. Johnny Silverhand is still your buddy, and he's still giving you his thoughts all the time. That is great. There is a lot that I was really pleasantly surprised about for this extended demo. But like I said, let's just keep our hype in check. Let's wait until it's out. Let's see how we go. But yeah, like, so far so good. That's what I will say. I definitely walked away pleasantly happy, but also pleasantly surprised in many aspects. And I'm really keen to hear more about all of the base game improvements rolling through, because personally, that's the part I'm more excited about than the actual expansion. Because yeah, as I said, I think Cyberpunk still has a lot of potential, and any move to bring that potential out, I think is great. So anyway, those are my impressions of Phantom Liberty. I think the release date is being announced at the Xbox Showcase. That's a guess, so I don't have that now because I'm recording before then. But likely when this goes up, there will probably already be a release date. The rumors are it's soon, but don't quote me on that, obviously. And when it does arrive, I will, of course, give you a full review. Cool. All right, thanks very much. I'll see you soon. Bye. Alright, so recently I had to make a trip to Melbourne to go hands-on with Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom early, and along for the ride came this bad boy, the all-new MSI Stealth 14 Studio. I was so happy with how this laptop performed on the road that I was like, MSI, do you guys mind if I borrow this for my trip to LA for Summer Games? And they were like, fine, just make sure it comes back in one piece. So, here it is, in my hotel room, the center of my content creation command station. Every hot take you're forced to suffer through comes courtesy of this laptop. I really love this thing for a lot of reasons, not least of all the fact that it's brand spanking new. It's part of the MSI 2023 product refresh that I covered a little while ago, and I was actually one of the first people in Australia to get my hands on this thing, and yeah, it's pretty nuts. It gets most of its grunt from the RTX 40 series GPU. This is among the first laptops to hit the market with the 40 series, bringing with it the huge benefits of this generation of graphics hardware. What are those benefits? Well, on top of the raw processing power of 40 series GPUs, Nvidia's latest gen hardware also delivers DLSS 3, a technology which can massively increase your frames per second in any game that supports it. DLSS 3 uses AI to interlace additional frames into those being rendered by your hardware, which can more than double or even triple your base frame rates. This sort of performance headroom enables things like Cyberpunk's new Overdrive ray tracing update, which I covered earlier this month as well. This is what's called full ray tracing, and it's the most realistic rendition of light, shadows, and reflections we've ever seen in a video game.
all of it enabled by and exclusive to NVIDIA's 40 series hardware. The MSI Stealth 14 Studio is able to take advantage of all that technology because it has a 40 series GPU, but that's not all it's packing. It's rocking the latest 13th gen Core i7 Intel processor, it has a Quad HD 240Hz screen, DDR5 memory, a PCIe Gen 4 SSD, and tons more. All of this is supported by MSI's vapor chamber cooling, providing industry-leading thermals allowing you to push even more performance out of all of this hardware. And believe it or not, MSI have managed to squeeze everything I have just described into a laptop that weighs 1.7 kilograms, which is just insane. That's actually the biggest reason I wanted to take this laptop with me to LA. I'm running around over here, dashing from meeting to meeting, carrying this thing on my back all day long, and damn if you barely even notice it in your backpack because it is just so light. NVIDIA GeForce RTX 40 series laptops really are the ultimate play, and if you want to get the best hardware, the best technology like ray tracing and DLSS 3, and the best build quality, features and cooling, then the MSI Stealth 14 Studio is for you. Click the link below to learn more. Thanks MSI and NVIDIA for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.